Before we start, think about the quality of the relationship you have with your child. And if you're feeling particularly brave, I would like for you to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being absolutely no relationship and 10 being the best possible relationship you could ever have with your child. When parents come to see me in my private practice or when I was running treatment programs for teens and families, I would ask a very similar question to parents. I would say about 2/3 of the parents that I interviewed during intakes would say that their relationship with their child would need some work. Maybe 50% would say that it needs a lot of work or that they don't have much of a quality of a relationship with their child. The biggest gift that you can give your child is to work on having a healthy relationship with them. So I've created this series of videos in the Fortified Relationships course so that parents just like you can appreciate and enjoy the gift of great relationships with your family members. Great relationships start when you show up as your best possible self. And in family systems theory, that means having a balance between thoughts, feelings, self, and other. And these are essential components of being in a healthy relationship with anyone. And it's understanding this weird diagram that is one of the core components of the Fortified Relationships course. And I promise if you take it, it will make sense. A person with a balanced self of thoughts, feelings, self, and other is a person who is psychologically mature and capable of having the best possible relationships with anyone. And your parenting style is going to reflect how balanced your thoughts, feelings, self, and other are, because the term parenting is just another way of describing the relationship you have with your child. The way that I was taught to understand parenting styles means that you have to fit into one of 4 boxes, which is quite limiting. So within my people patterns, I'm suggesting we look at parenting in a slightly different way. This is the parenting style chart that I was taught in grad school, and you might be familiar with it. It gives you 4 common types of parenting: authoritarian, permissive, neglectful, and authoritative. It was created in the 1960s by Diana Baumrind and is basically the gold standard of all things parenting. And it's certainly very helpful apart from only having 4 choices. What most people don't know is that this is based on the work of Earl Schaefer, who was doing research on parenting in the 50s. And he came up with 3 important things that he thought parents needed to provide their children in order for them to become healthy, happy kids. They needed to be accepting and not rejecting of their children. They needed to exert some control over their children's behaviors. And they needed to give their children the permission to be themselves, and we call that autonomy. Baumrind came along and developed these a little bit more, and she believed that accepting, not rejecting was important, but she wanted to add emotional warmth to the mix, those yummy, loving, good feelings that parents like to give their children. And she combined the 2, and that became responsiveness, which is the first scale in the quadrant that we just saw. She also liked control of behaviors, but wanted to add expectations into the mix, because some parents have very high expectations of their children and others don't. So she combined those 2 and called it demandingness. That became the other spectrum, which she flipped 90 degrees to make the 4 quadrants. The only problem with this, aside from only giving us 4 options, is autonomy is not in the mix anymore. And I think that is vital to understanding parenting and child development. So I prefer to take some of Baumrind's ideas, deconstruct them, and sort of recombine them with Schaefer's work. And you get 4 dials of parenting. Accepting, not rejecting is in there because that's very important, obviously. Warmth, I love that Baumrind added this, and I think it becomes its own scale. I don't see why it has to be combined with accepting versus rejecting. Control of behavior is in the mix, and it includes expectations thanks to the work of Diana Baumrind. And the biggest change is I'm putting autonomy on its own dial because it is that important to understand. The bad news is we don't get 4 cute little boxes anymore, but who likes being put in a box anyway? Now, what I do like about that is that if every parenting style is made up of a combination of these 4 dials, then different settings on each dial would account for any and all parenting terms that come up in the future. So when it comes to thoughts and feelings, I think the 2 dials of acceptance and warmth that Schaefer and Baumrind pointed out are encouraging us to express our feelings to our kids. So we're talking about emotional communication, and this is essential in order for us to feel close and connected to someone and for someone else to feel close and connected to us. Part of the course is definitely about distinguishing thoughts and feelings and expressing feelings in an appropriate way that isn't overwhelming. And I think sometimes parents are scared to share their feelings with their kids, or they believe that their kids don't actually want to know what they're feeling. But actually, the most magical family therapy sessions for me have been the ones in which I can get a parent to share what's going on and the kid to listen, and then there's like tears and hugs and Kleenex going everywhere. Whenever our thoughts, feelings, self, and other are out of balance, we run the risk of having or developing some dysfunctional patterns in relationships. So too many feelings, and I think you run the risk as a parent of being a jellyfish parent who backs away from strong feelings in their kids. Or too much thoughts, and I think conversations become distancing when teenagers are actually really wanting to feel connected and close to someone. This comes up for me when I'm working with parents who are particularly demanding of their children. So that's the tiger parents or the high achievement parents. And also too much thoughts can sound like lecturing or advice giving, which is a trap in communication that there's an entire module on. The Fortified Relationships course expands on all of the principles and more that I've talked about in this video, and it's filled with tools and examples that I hope are practical and useful to you. They're often tools that I've actually used myself in private practice or in residential treatment settings, and I've had huge success with some of them. There's an introduction to fortified relationships that is open now, and it's completely free. I really hope that you take advantage of it and begin to learn how family systems can help you grow great relationships with anyone in your life.